The Shadow Dance by Bernard Capes. Read by Bethina. "Yes, it was a rum start," said the modish young man. He was a modern version of the crutch and toothpick genus, a derivative from the Gaiety boy of the Nellie Farron epoch, very spotless, very superior, very fundamentally and combatively simple. I don't know how he had found his way into Carleon's rooms and our company, but Carleon had a liking for odd characters. He was a collector, as it were, of human pottery, and to the collector, as we know, primitive examples are of especial interest. The bait in this instance, I think, had been bridge, which, since some formal duckdami must serve for calling fools into a circle, was our common pretext for assembling an orgy of talk. We had played, however, for insignificant stakes, and on the whole irreverently as regarded the sanctity of the game, and the young man was palpably bored. He thought us, without question, outsiders and not altogether good form, and it was even a relief to him when the desultory play languished and conversation became general in its place. Somebody, I don't remember on what provocation, had referred to the now historic affair of the Hungarian ballet, which, the rage in London for a season, had voluntarily closed its own career a week before the date advertised for its termination, and the modish young man, it appeared, was the only one of us all who had happened to be present in the theatre on the occasion of the final performance. He told us so, and added that it was a rum start. "The abrupt finish was due, of course," said Carleon, bending forward, hectic, bright-eyed, and hugging himself, as was his wont, to Kaunitz' death. "She was the bright particular draw. It would have been nothing without her. Besides, there was the tragedy. What was the rum start? Tell us." "The way it ended that night," said the young man. He was a little abashed by the sudden concentration of interest on himself, but carried it off with sang-froid. Only a slight flush of pink on his youthful cheek as he flicked the ash from his cigarette with the delicate little finger of the hand that held it, confessed to a certain uneasy self-consciousness. "I've heard something about it," said Carleon. "Give us your version." "I'm no hand at describing things," responded the young man, committed and at bay. "Never wrote a line of description in my life, nor wanted to. It was the shadow dance, you know, the last thing on the programme. I dare say some of you have seen Kaunitz in it." One or two of us had. It was incomparably the most beautiful, the most mystic idyll achieved by even that superlative dancer, a fantasia of moonlight, supported by an ethereal, only half-revealed shimmer of attendant sylphids. "Yes," said Carleon eagerly. "Well, you know," said the young man, "there is a sort of dance first, in and out of the shadows, a mysterious, gossamery kind of business which nobody made out exactly, and the moon slowly rising behind the trees, and then, suddenly, the moon reaches a gap in the branches, and it's a full moon, don't you know, a regular white blaze of it, and all the shapes have vanished, only you sort of guess them, get a hint of their arms and faces hiding behind the leaves and under the shrubs and things. And that was the time when Kaunitz ought to have come on." "Didn't she come on?" "Not at first, not when she ought to. There was a devil of a pause, and you could see something was wrong. And after a bit there was a sort of rustle in the house, and people began to cough, and the music slipped round to the beginning again. And they danced it all over a second time, until it came to the full moonlight. And there she was this time all right. How? I don't know, for I hadn't seen her enter." "How did she dance, when she did appear?" The young man blew the ash from his cigarette. "Oh, I don't know," he said. "You must know. Wasn't it something quite out of the common? You called it a rum start, you remember." "Well, if you insist upon it, it was the most extraordinary thing I ever witnessed. More like what they describe the Pepper's ghost business than anything else I can think. She was here, there, everywhere, seemingly independent of what you call gravitation, you know. She seemed to jump and hang in the air before she came down. And there was another thing. The idea was to dance to her own shadow, you see. Follow it, run away from it, flirt with it. And it was the business of the moon, or the limelight man, to keep the shadow going." "Well?" "Well, there was no shadow, no sign of one." "That may have been the limelight man's fault." "Very likely, but I don't think so. There was something odd about it all, and most in the way she went." "How was that?" "Why, she just gave a spring and was gone." Carlin sank back with a sigh as if of repletion, and sat softly cracking his fingers together. "Didn't you notice anything strange about the house, the audience?" he said. "People crying out, girls crouching and hiding their faces, for instance." "Perhaps, now I think of it," answered the modish youth. "I noticed anyhow that the curtain came down with a bang, and that there seemed a sort of general flurry and stampede of things, both behind it and on our side." "Well, as to that, it is a fact, though you may not know it, that after that night the company absolutely refused to complete its engagement on any terms." "I dare say they had lost Kaunitz." "To be sure they had. She was already lying dead in her dressing room when the shadow dance began." "Not when it began." "So anyhow it was whispered." "Oh, I say," said the young man, looking rather white. "I'm not going to believe that, you know." That was The Shadow Dance by Bernard Capes, a once popular contributor to Victorian magazines, an author of novels, now due a bit of rescuing from obscurity, I think. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, I have more Bernard Capes stories in my channel. And, as always, thank you for listening.